Amanda thought she knew the truth about God and the afterlife until a freak accident changed everything. Watch as she shares her incredible near-death experience that shattered everything she believed about religion and eternity. My name is Amanda Faruqi. And I'm 51 years old. I live in a modest 2-story house in Lansing, Michigan, where I've spent most of my adult life. Before everything changed, I was just your typical middle-aged mom, working as a pharmacy technician at the local CVS and raising my 2 teenagers alongside my husband, Kareem. If you believe in God and near-death experiences, subscribe to Life at NDE today. Discover inspiring messages from God through powerful near-death stories that bring hope and understanding. Hit subscribe now and join us in spreading the light of faith. Growing up in a devout Muslim family, my faith was not just a part of my life, it was the foundation of everything I did. From a very young age, I was taught the importance of prayer, fasting, and following the teachings of Islam. I prayed 5 times a day without fail, making sure to honor the prescribed moments of connection with God. During Ramadan, I fasted every year, observing the holy month with dedication and discipline. Even when the days were long and difficult, it wasn't just about the rituals, it was about embodying the principles of my faith in every aspect of my life. My parents had immigrated from Pakistan before I was born, and they carried their traditions with them across the world, ensuring that we, their children, stayed rooted in our cultural and religious practices. Despite the challenges of living in a foreign country, they were determined to keep our heritage alive. Our home was filled with the sounds of prayer, the aroma of traditional meals, and the guidance of faith. They instilled in me a deep sense of devotion to God and a commitment to live according to His will. In our household, religion wasn't something separate from daily life, it was woven into every moment. From our family gatherings to our community involvement, everything was centered around the teachings of Islam. My parents were role models for me, showing me through their actions what it meant to live a life of faith. They weren't just religious in private, but carried the values of Islam into their work, their relationships, and their interactions with the world around them. Living in America, I faced the challenge of balancing my cultural identity with the demands of fitting in. But my parents' guidance made me proud of who I was. They taught me to never be ashamed of my faith, and to always uphold the values I had been raised with, no matter where I was or who I was with. Through them, I learned the importance of keeping my faith strong, even when the world around me seemed to push in different directions. That winter morning started like any other. I was preparing for my early shift, hurrying around the kitchen to make breakfast for the kids before school. The news was playing softly in the background, mentioning a snowstorm that was supposed to hit later in the week. I remember thinking to myself that I should probably stock up on groceries after work, just in case. What I didn't know, and what I would later learn, was that our carbon monoxide detector had been malfunctioning for weeks. The batteries were dead, and somehow, neither Kareem nor I had noticed. We'd forgotten to replace them during our usual house maintenance routine, something we typically did without fail. Unbeknownst to us, our aging furnace had developed a crack in the heat exchanger, which began to slowly leak the dangerous, odorless, and colorless gas into our home. At the time, it all seemed so normal. I was just going about my morning routine, unaware that something as simple as neglecting to replace the batteries could have such a devastating impact. The quiet hum of the furnace, the rush of the morning, the ordinary distractions, it all felt just like any other day. But it was far from it. I started feeling a bit dizzy while packing lunches, but I brushed it off as just being tired. It had been a busy week, and I thought maybe I was just running low on energy. My daughter, Amira, complained of a headache and wanted to stay home from school. I told her she'd be fine. But I could tell she didn't feel well. My son, Zain, was already upstairs in the shower, getting ready for the day. Kareem had left early for his job at the engineering firm downtown. So I was managing the morning on my own. But as I continued my routine, the dizziness worsened. It wasn't just fatigue anymore. The room started spinning around me, and my vision became blurry at the edges. I tried to steady myself, but it felt as though the world was tilting. I remember reaching for my phone to call 911. But by that point, my fingers felt numb and uncoordinated, like they didn't belong to me anymore. I struggled to focus, but it was all slipping away. The last thing I saw before everything went black was Amira's face, wide with fear as she rushed to me. Then, without warning, I collapsed onto the kitchen floor, unconscious. I had no idea that in those final moments, my life was hanging by a thread. I later learned that, despite feeling sick herself, Amira had somehow managed to call emergency services. It's almost impossible to comprehend how she did it. But somehow, in the midst of her own dizziness and fear, she was able to think clearly enough to dial 911. I remember how terrified she looked before I lost consciousness. But I never realized just how much she must have been struggling to stay on her feet. The fact that she was able to make that call, to reach out for help when she was barely able to move, felt like a miracle in itself. The firefighters arrived within minutes, rushing into the house and quickly assessing the situation. They found that the carbon monoxide levels were dangerously high, more than enough to put all of us at risk. They knew exactly what needed to be done. They didn't waste any time. The firefighters got us all out of the house with urgency and precision. I was unconscious and unresponsive, barely clinging to life. Amira was in bad shape, barely able to walk, her body succumbing to the same effects that had hit me. And Zain, who had been upstairs taking a shower, had collapsed in the water, unconscious and unaware of what was happening around him. In those moments, I didn't know it then, but our lives hung in the balance. The firefighters got us all out just in time, and I remember hearing the faint sound of sirens in the distance. I didn't know it, but that was the beginning of a turning point that would change everything. When I finally regained some semblance of awareness, I learned from the paramedics that my heart had actually stopped for 4 minutes and 37 seconds in the ambulance. I was clinically dead. I had crossed over into a space where I wasn't just unconscious, I had left this world. And for those precious minutes, I was no longer tethered to my body or the life I had known. My heart had stopped, and I wasn't supposed to come back. But what happened during those minutes felt like an eternity. And those moments completely transformed everything I had believed about life, death, and what comes after. When I think back on it now, I realize that time, as we know it, didn't exist in the same way during those minutes. Everything seemed to stretch out in an endless, boundless space. There was no ticking clock, no urgency, just a strange sense of calm that settled over me. I wasn't afraid. I didn't feel pain or fear or the usual panic that comes with uncertainty. Instead, I felt a peace that seemed to fill the very core of my being. It was like I was surrounded by something much greater than myself. Something that transcended everything I had understood in my life before. In those minutes, I was shown things, visions, or feelings, or just an overwhelming sense of presence that I can't fully explain with words. It wasn't about anything I had been taught in the traditional sense of religion. It was beyond doctrine, beyond rituals. It was about love, about an overwhelming connection to a higher power that I could feel deep within me. There was no judgment, no condemnation, just a vast, profound sense of peace and understanding that washed over me. I was not alone in that moment. I knew, without a doubt, that I was being held, being cared for in a way I had never known. When I came back to consciousness, when I was brought back to life, I was different. My world felt different. The experience was so profound, so real, that it reshaped everything I thought I knew about existence, about my faith, and about what awaits beyond this life. What I had experienced during those 4 minutes and 37 seconds completely shattered my previous understanding of life, death, and everything in between. And, in the days that followed, I began to realize that this was not just a near-death experience, it was a transformative moment that would stay with me forever. I had seen things beyond this world, felt things that words can hardly capture, and I knew that I could never go back to the way I had lived before. Looking back now, I can see how my whole life had been leading up to that moment. All those years of devoted prayers, the countless times I bowed in submission, and all the religious teachings I'd absorbed without question seemed like pieces of a puzzle I thought I had solved. My certainty about what happens after death was the cornerstone of my faith. I believed I understood the world, my place in it, and the divine order that governed it all. But none of it had truly prepared me for what I was about to experience. I had spent my life carefully following the rules, convinced that doing so would guarantee my salvation. Every prayer, every fast, and every act of devotion was like a brick in the wall of my certainty. I was confident that I knew what awaited me on the other side, that I had a firm grasp on the truth. Yet, in the instant when my life was slipping away, when my world seemed to crumble, I was confronted with a reality far more profound than anything I had imagined. It was in that moment of vulnerability, when everything I thought I knew was stripped away, that I began to see just how little I truly understood and how much more there was to discover. The doctor later told me how incredibly lucky I was to be alive. He explained how carbon monoxide poisoning is often called the silent killer because it gives so little warning. If Amira hadn't made that call when she did, if the first responders had been delayed by even a few minutes, or if the carbon monoxide levels in our home had been just a fraction higher, none of us would have survived. The realization was staggering how close we all came to losing everything. It's a thought that still lingers with me, heavy and sobering. But as I reflect on it now, I know that luck had nothing to do with it. I didn't survive because of chance or coincidence. There was no randomness in how that morning unfolded. Everything, the timing, the circumstances, the actions taken by others, was part of a much greater plan. What happened next wasn't an accident. It was a divine appointment. A moment in time carefully orchestrated by a force far beyond my comprehension. At first, I struggled to make sense of it. Why me? Why was I given this second chance when so many others aren't? Why was I chosen to see what I was about to witness? These questions would haunt me for weeks, even months, as I tried to reconcile the enormity of the experience with the ordinary life I thought I knew. But as time passed, I began to understand that this wasn't just about me. It wasn't about my survival alone, but about the message I was meant to carry forward, a truth I had been blind to, a truth I was now called to share. Even now, I can still vividly remember the feeling of being on the edge of life and death. It wasn't just a physical experience, it was spiritual, emotional, and deeply transformative. It felt as though the very foundation of my beliefs had been shaken, leaving me exposed to a reality I had never considered. In those minutes when my heart stopped beating, I came face to face with truths that would forever alter the course of my life. And as terrifying as it was, it also felt like the beginning of something beautiful, a chance to rebuild, to understand, and to live in a way that aligned with what I now knew to be true. The days following the incident were filled with gratitude but also an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Every breath felt like a gift. Every moment a second chance. I could no longer take for granted the life I had been given or the path I was now being called to walk. It wasn't just about surviving that day, it was about stepping into a purpose that had been waiting for me all along. I truly believed that my experience wasn't just about the physical dangers we faced that morning, but about the profound truths that were revealed to me during those moments when I was clinically dead. It wasn't just about saving my life, it was about understanding something far more significant. It was a revelation that would change everything I had once held as certain, and open my eyes to a reality I hadn't even known existed. In those moments, I was shown that life and death aren't just biological events. They are part of a much grander, more spiritual journey. One that transcends the boundaries of what we know or can comprehend. I didn't just get a second chance at life, I was given the gift of deeper understanding. A chance to see beyond the surface and touch something divine. What I saw, what I felt. It was meant to shift my perspective entirely and to open me to truths I never could have expected. During the time I was clinically dead, I found myself in a place unlike anything I had ever imagined. A realm that transcended all earthly understanding. It was not heaven, nor was it hell, but a space so filled with light, peace, and an overwhelming sense of love that it defied any attempt at description. The light wasn't blinding, but warm and enveloping, as if it was part of me and I was part of it. I felt no fear, no anxiety, or any of the emotions one might expect to encounter in such an unknown state. Instead, I felt a profound calmness, a peace that permeated every fiber of my being. It was as though I was surrounded by something far greater than myself. Something that stretched beyond the limits of my comprehension. Yet something that felt completely familiar. As though it had always been there. This space was unlike anything I had ever known. It wasn't governed by the rules or beliefs I had held so tightly to before. And there were no boundaries to how far I could stretch my awareness. It was a boundless place, full of connection, unity, and an infinite sense of belonging. There was no judgment here, no condemnation for past actions or choices. No sense of right or wrong in the way I had previously understood it. All that existed was a profound and indescribable connection to a force beyond comprehension. A force that was both intimately personal and universally vast at the same time. It was a connection that transcended the rigid constructs of religion, dogma, or ideology that I had adhered to in my earthly life. It was a feeling of being held, of being loved without condition or expectation. And in this space, I was not alone. I was surrounded by a presence so deeply loving, so infinitely compassionate, that it made all the pain, fear, and uncertainty of earthly existence seem trivial by comparison. In that moment, I didn't just understand the concept of a higher power, I felt it in my core. Experienced it in every part of me. This wasn't an abstract idea or a distant deity, it was a presence that was deeply personal and yet greater than anything I had ever known. I realized that the life I had lived, the religious teachings I had followed, were just fragments of a much grander and more beautiful truth. They were important, yes, but they were only pieces of a divine puzzle that could not be confined to human understanding or limited by rigid belief systems. The truth I encountered was not found in doctrines or rules, but in the purest essence of love, compassion, and connection. It wasn't about adhering to a set of beliefs or dogmas, but about being open to the greater mystery of existence, to the unfolding truth that flows from love and acceptance. When I returned to my body, re-entering the physical world, everything felt different. The life I had once believed to be certain, fixed, and linear, one that followed predictable patterns and routines, now seemed to be filled with an infinite array of possibilities. The boundaries I had once placed on life, death, and everything in between began to dissolve. What had seemed like a finite journey, with clear beginnings and endings, was now revealed to be something much more intricate, fluid, and connected than I had ever imagined. Life was not a straight line, it was a web, an interconnected dance of moments, choices, and experiences that were far more complex and beautiful than I had been able to perceive before. I understood now that the experiences, beliefs, and lessons I had lived through were only fragments of a much larger journey, one that I was just beginning to grasp. A journey whose full depth and meaning I could not yet fully comprehend. I knew, with unwavering certainty, that what I had experienced during my time beyond the physical world was real. It was not an illusion or a trick of the mind. Not a fleeting moment of imagination or fantasy, it was a direct and tangible encounter with the divine presence. I had felt it in the core of my being, in a way that surpassed all human understanding. God was not just a distant concept, nor was he confined to the limited frameworks of religious doctrine or ideology. The reality of God, I realized, was far greater than I had ever conceived. This divine presence was not bound by the limitations of human constructs or by the boundaries we so often place around our understanding of the universe. The connection we have with God, with the divine, is not defined by rules, regulations, or the need to belong to a specific group. It transcends these boundaries and is rooted instead in the universal truths of love, peace, and openness to discovery. What I had come to understand was that it's not about following a specific set of prescribed rules or identifying with a particular religious or spiritual tradition. It's about the love we cultivate within our hearts, the peace we nurture in our souls, and the openness we maintain to the divine truth that is always present, always flowing, always guiding us. This truth is not limited to any one person, place, or tradition. It is infinite and eternal, constantly moving, evolving, and inviting us to discover a deeper, more profound understanding of the world and ourselves. In that moment, I realized that the path to divine connection was not about rigid adherence to a set of beliefs or behaviors, but about embracing the infinite possibilities that exist within the love and truth of the divine presence. This experience completely reshaped my perspective on life. It made me realize that the questions I had once asked, the beliefs I had held onto so tightly, were only pieces of a much larger puzzle. Life, I saw, was not about following a rigid set of rules or proving the correctness of any particular faith. It wasn't about the certainty of our understanding or the defense of our beliefs. It was about being open. Open to love. Open to growth. Open to the exploration of truth. And open to the infinite possibilities that lie just beyond the surface of our everyday experiences. The divine truth that I encountered transcended any traditional religious teachings, any dogma or ideology that I had once thought was the ultimate answer. It was a truth that couldn't be reduced to human understanding or boxed into definitions. It was far greater, deeper, more expansive, and more beautiful than anything words could ever hope to express. It defied every label, every category, every limitation we try to place upon it. Now, as I continue on this journey of life, everything I once took for granted looks different. I no longer feel the pressure to have all the answers, nor do I feel the need to justify the validity of my beliefs to others. I've come to understand that life is not about being right or seeking some final certainty. It's about the journey itself, the unfolding, the experiences, the growth. It's about the love we share, the connections we build, and the lessons we learn along the way. I've learned that it's not about fitting into a particular mold or following a prescribed path laid out by others. It's about being open. Open to the mystery of life, to the beauty in not knowing, and to the joy of continually learning and evolving. Embracing the unknown, finding peace in the questions, and accepting that there is an infinite truth that exists beyond the confines of our human understanding is what brings us closer to the essence of life. This new understanding has freed me from the constraints of needing to have it all figured out. Instead, I find joy in the journey, in the discovery, and in the beautiful mystery that life presents every day. The experience that saved my life also revealed a much greater truth, one that has become a foundational part of my existence and the lens through which I now see the world. This truth is not something I merely acknowledge or contemplate, it is a truth that I carry with me in everything I do, in every decision I make, and in every interaction I have with others. It has become the very guiding light of my life, illuminating the path before me and offering clarity in times of confusion. This truth is more radiant than any ideology, doctrine, or belief system I had ever clung to before. It shines brighter than any rigid structure or framework of thought that once defined my understanding of life. It surpasses everything I once believed to be the ultimate, showing me that there is something far more profound and beautiful than what I had known. The light I now walk in is the light of love, pure, unconditional, and eternal. It is the light of connection, not just with the divine, but with all of creation. It is the realization that all things are interconnected in ways I could never have imagined before. What I once saw as isolated events, individual journeys, or separate existences, I now understand as part of a larger, harmonious whole. The love that connects us all to the divine is not just a concept, it is the very fabric of life, weaving together the vast tapestry of existence. This love is not something distant or abstract, it is immediate, present, and active in every part of life, guiding us, sustaining us, and leading us toward deeper understanding. This experience has taught me that life, in all its beauty and complexity, is not about finding definitive answers or arriving at a final conclusion. It is not about clinging to the certainty of fixed beliefs or achieving a state of knowing that shuts out the possibility of growth. Instead, life is about seeking truth, seeking connection, seeking understanding. It is about discovering the deeper meanings that lie beneath the surface of our everyday lives, and embracing the love that unites us all. Life is about being open to the unfolding journey, one that is constantly evolving and expanding. The answers may not always come in the ways we expect, but the quest itself is where the richness of life lies. It is in the seeking, the wondering, and the exploration that we truly connect with the divine. Now, as I continue forward on my journey, I realize that the path I walk is no longer just my own. The insights I have gained, the truth that has been revealed to me, are not meant to be kept within myself but are meant to be shared, experienced, and understood with others. This is a shared journey, one that we are all walking together, whether we realize it or not. The connections I form with others are no longer random or fleeting, they are part of the greater tapestry of life that we are all woven into. Every relationship, every interaction, is a step along this shared path toward greater understanding, love, and spiritual growth. I now know, with every fiber of my being, that the divine presence I encountered is not just a fleeting moment in time, but a constant, ever-present force that surrounds us in every moment of our lives. It is with us always, patiently and compassionately guiding us toward greater awareness, deeper understanding, and boundless compassion. This divine presence is a companion unlike any other, always there to lead us gently through the uncertainties and challenges of life. No matter how lost or confused we may feel, this presence is a reminder that there is a deeper truth waiting to be discovered in every experience, in every moment, if only we are open to it. The divine does not abandon us, it is always by our side, showing us that there is meaning and growth to be found even in the most difficult times. We are not alone on this journey. And that realization has become one of the most comforting truths I now carry within me. We are not isolated beings, left to navigate life on our own, rather. We are enveloped in the loving embrace of the divine wisdom that guides us each day. The love and wisdom of the divine constantly surround us, offering gentle nudges and illuminating the way, helping us to find our path when we may feel lost. This divine presence does not force us but encourages us to move forward, ever progressing toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As we walk together on this journey of life, we are drawn closer to each other, to ourselves, and to the divine, as we share the human experience with one another. This journey is not one of isolation or separateness, it is a journey of unity, connection, and shared experience, where every moment we live is woven together by the threads of our collective existence. Each step we take on this journey is a step toward a deeper understanding not only of who we are as individuals, but also of who we are when we come together as one. In this shared experience, we begin to realize that we are not isolated beings, but interconnected, each of us an integral part of the whole. Every connection we make, every moment of shared love, compassion, and kindness, brings us closer to the truth of who we truly are at our core, beings of infinite potential, boundless creativity, and divine light. This light is not something we possess alone, it is something we share, something that radiates out into the world, illuminating the lives of those around us. As we continue on this journey together, we are constantly reminded that the love that connects us all is infinite, unending, and all-encompassing. It is not bound by time, space, or circumstance, but exists beyond these limitations. It is always present, a constant source of guidance and comfort, and it is forever loving, unconditional, and expansive. This love is the force that moves through all things, connecting everything in a web of divine purpose and infinite potential. The more we open ourselves to this love and embrace the journey together, the closer we come to the ultimate truth that we are all part of a vast, interconnected web of life, a divine purpose that unites us all. In that unity, we find not only strength and peace but also a deeper understanding of our place in the world and in the universe. As we come together, we are drawn closer to the infinite love that binds us all. And in that love, we find the guidance we need to navigate life's challenges and triumphs. It is in this divine unity that we are reminded of our highest purpose and the beauty of our shared existence. With each step we take, we move closer to home, the home that is not a place, but a state of being, a place of love, belonging, and truth. This love that binds us together is the path we walk, and it is the force that leads us toward the ultimate reunion with the divine, where we are one with the infinite love that has always been and always will be. If you believe in God and near-death experiences, subscribe to Life at NDE today. Discover inspiring messages from God through powerful near-death stories that bring hope and understanding. Hit subscribe now and join us in spreading the light of faith.